There has to be a better way of doing business. Business hasn't moved that far from where we started, of buying and selling, supplying and demanding, pushing and pulling. And with each ring on the tree of business growth, it moves further away from consumers. The bigger the business, the less intimate it becomes. The more walls, departments, and structures, the more insulation from real people with real problems, with real families, with real joys, with real pains, and even with social technologies, we still treat consumers as targets, friends, followers, demos, psychos, segments. But business hasn't changed the way it works for or with consumers. And that's a big miss. The truth is, business feels more comfortable seeing consumers as data points, in crowds, or from behind one-way glass. So what business leaders understand about consumers then is watered down. Facts with little meaning. By the time it gets through all the analysis, algorithms, and hierarchy, what comes out doesn't resemble what consumers put in. There's no insight, there's no story, there's no solve. There's nothing anyone else probably couldn't have come up with themselves. By keeping consumers at a distance, businesses fail to see consumers as awesome, as creative, as quirky, as cool, as imaginative, as real, as special, or sweet. We don't see the possibilities in consumers' lives because we don't value what's important to them, their emotions. Because for consumers, feelings are facts. When your best friend tells you you look fat in those jeans, it's as true gets. But emotions are what business has designed out of its walls. Business has trained its people to make decisions on data, facts, and analysis. As a result, business has developed an intimacy problem. Business is scared of consumers. While there are plenty of well-intentioned companies out there, those immersing themselves in the consumer, shopping along with them, spending a day in their homes, these are one-night stands, not relationships. And that's a big difference, because relationships are where the good stuff happens, where we open ourselves up, where we admit we're not always right. Relationships value emotions over facts, empathy over data, intimacy over tonnage. Relationships are the underpinning of what is perhaps a better way of doing business. When we get rid of inside-out, we-know-best thinking, and we partner with consumers as equals. When we get beyond insulating ourselves from consumers and work directly with consumers. When we get beyond the data, when we see the individual through the crowd, when we move in front of the one-way glass, when we stop just collecting data on consumers and start collaborating with consumers as a better way of doing business. Consumer collaboration, where business treats consumers as partners, where business breaks down the walls, departments, and structures and integrates the consumer into everything, where consumers work together with companies to co-create the future for one another. So imagine if product developers collaborated with consumers to develop products together, not to outsource or crowdsource product development, but to be inspired by, to create together. Imagine if marketing collaborated with consumers instead of researching them at a distance, to elevate the role the consumer plays in the company from outsider to insider to partner. Imagine if heads of business units were all responsible for knowing the consumer, for having a consumer gut. Business leaders would know their consumers as well as they know their numbers or their products. Their products and how they're marketed would be meaningful. They would matter by design. They would make more money for companies and fit better in people's lives. Consumer collaboration has the potential for far greater commercial impact with the least amount of risk. After all, involving the people you're trying to serve is fairly intuitive, but it's not readily done because it's hard. Emotions are messy, relationships are tough to create and sustain and grow. Relationships are a commitment. It's why consumer collaboration can't be a thing, a project, or a process. It must apply method to the messy. It must blend disciplines of science and art to create change, to be woven into the fabric of SOPs, BAUs, and KPIs as a better way of doing business. There are a few handfuls of companies beginning to collaborate with consumers, and they're seeing greater commercial impact as they do. They are the pioneers, the early winners, but they are also just at the beginning stages of their relationships with consumers. As these companies and others get beyond squeezing every bit of efficiency and optimization out of their systems, they will need to find new ways to grow, working with consumers on equal ground for mutual benefit. Consumer collaboration as a better way of doing business.